I love the part in Aquaman where they play the song Africa by Toto, except it's a cover by Pitbull. How do you sleep at night? Aquaman was the surprise of the year. I wasn't expecting to like this film, like, at all. But this one surprised me a little bit. It's a step up for DC, and I feel like they're going in the right direction starting off with this film. It's better than Justice League, and it's better than Suicide Squad, but it still has flaws. Starting off with the poor CGI, that kind of bothered me a lot. It didn't look that realistic. But I don't know, it's just kind of how I feel about it. Some of the acting was pretty poor. There was a small part of the film where it shows Aquaman as a teenager, and the teenager had to act upset, and it just ended up being really funny. Amber Heard, I feel, is a beautiful mess. She's good at fighting, but not really the best at acting. Another flaw, as mentioned at the beginning of this review, was the soundtrack, with one of the best songs I've heard, with the best song on the soundtrack being Ocean to Ocean, Song of the Year, baby, let's go, yes! Yes! And for my last flaw, I feel that the fight with Black Manta was a little bit unsatisfying. I feel the character wasn't that developed, and I felt that when he fought Aquaman, it just didn't feel necessary almost. Alright, now I gotta give this film some credit, at least for a little bit. Starting off with the cinematography. This film has some of the best cinematography I've seen from a DC film in quite some time. There were some shots in this film that actually kind of blew my mind. It was also colorful and nice to look at. That made up for the kind of poor CGI. Overall, I feel that DC is going in the right direction with this film. I see DC starting to succeed now, although the film was just way too long and boring at times that led me to lowering the score just slightly. It's not the best DC film, but it's one of the more okay films I've seen from them in quite some time, and I'm giving Aquaman 3 stars. The Possession of Hannah Grace is a film that was made and actually released. This is no joke the worst film I have ever seen, from shit that makes zero sense to the awful characters, atrocious jump scares, and story. So in the opening scene, a girl named Hannah Grace is possessed, and she is killed while possessed due to a failed exorcism, and her body is brought to a morgue where a recovering addict is working the night shift for the first time. And since Hannah was killed during the exorcism, there is some stuff left behind that still begins to mess with our nice night shift morgue worker. The film is 85 minutes long with credits, so the majority of the film is this girl, Megan, played by Shay Mitchell, who used to be a cop, wandering around hallways. Doors open, weird sounds occur, and maybe there's a dead body that might just be causing all this. That's almost the entire film. This is a very limited cast. Obviously, the idea was, let's do an exorcism movie with a slight twist and let it all be in one spot so it's cheap and it'll probably make its money back in the opening weekend. Despite me not liking this film a whole lot, they do at least try some things. They try early on to give a backstory to the lead character Megan. They try to do a bit of a twist with the exorcism plot that we've seen thousands of times, and the director is at least trying to craft some creepy sequences. That doesn't necessarily mean that they work though. If you would have asked me if this film was scary or not, I would say if you're scared by false jump scares and loud noises, you would be terrified by this film. There's nothing but fake jump scares in this from what I remember. There are a ton of errors throughout the film that bothered me so much that I was screaming in my head. There's a scene in the film where Megan is on a computer doing computer stuff, and there behind her we see the door where Hannah Grace is open. Just a crack, not a whole lot. But then Megan turns around, gets up, and goes to inspect the door, and when she goes up to the door's wide open. It's small things like this that bothered me so heavily throughout the film. Easily the worst scene in this film is the scene that made me almost leave the theater. This was when the protagonist is in the bathroom and a ball is rolled to her. In the scene, she's sitting there until she hears a noise coming into the bathroom. A ball is rolled to her feet, and she is so surprised that she looks underneath the bathroom stall to see who was there. Of course, she doesn't see anything, and while she's still looking, from a side view, we get a shot of the ball being grabbed from the possessed girl, all while the protagonist was looking. This makes zero sense because she would have seen the possessed girl before she grabbed the ball. To make this worse, the protagonist only reacts and jumps after the ball is grabbed. I haven't seen a film that has aggravated me as much as this in a long time, leading me to feel that Possession of Hannah Grace is the worst film I have ever seen at the moment. As a recap, the negatives I feel are 5 fake jump scares in the first 20 minutes, when they forced a sad backstory so you would feel more affected by the pointless character's death, even though you only meet this character 5 minutes before they die. The boring story that would have been better as a short film. My only positive is the fact that this film is the funniest thing I've seen in forever. It takes talent to make a film as bad as this one. I do not recommend seeing this even if you want to laugh at how bad it is. Don't waste your time. Thankfully, the film was free for me to watch, so I'm not totally upset. And I'm giving The Possession of Hannah Grace a 1 star. Mortal Engines. This film takes place thousands of years into the future after some war, and now cities are on wheels. So yeah, this film was absolute shit. But what I like about it is the imagination. Like, the world is interesting. But the moment the protagonists go off the cities, it's where the film grinds to a halt. It starts getting messy, starts getting sloppy, too many plot lines are being thrown at you. And this is one of the tough things about adapting a book to a movie. There's so much that happens in a book, you gotta cut out some things. And I'm sure they did cut out things for this movie. I've never read the books and I don't know for sure, but they just didn't cut enough. Anytime a movie has a couple different groups, a couple different locations going on, doing their own thing, you have to make it work, but this movie doesn't do that. Most of the time, it's with the protagonists and then it just bounces back to London and you're like, oh yeah, them. I forgot about them, and that's never good. The coolest thing in this movie was that robot zombie, but my only problem with him is that his CGI looks kind of poor. In the end, Mortal Engines wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be, but it's not good enough for me to say, yeah, you should go watch it. It's just forgettable. When I walk out of a movie, I say, what's the rewatchability? And it's not rewatchable. It should have been a half an hour shorter. Out of all these bad things about it, the one part of the film that made my jaw drop in disgust was the fact that I knew this film was going to be shit the second I saw that there was a statue of fucking Minions in London. Oh, Minions. And I'm giving Mortal Engines a 1 star.